person knowing that what matters in life is that they are at peace. From this foundation, you can build something else. You can build a life for yourself somehow. But if a person tries to build their life off of something that's less than peace being kind of like the most gentle but pleasant feeling we have. So if you go below that, you're getting into something that's like a negative feeling. If you build your life upon anything that's a negative feeling, eventually it's going to collapse and in a way that you don't like because it was created from negative energy. The primary focus of life should be on just generating the right type of energy.
Welcome, everyone, to the Eons Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Alex Wolfe. And on the show, we like to have deep, intimate conversations with amazing people that are eons ahead. And what does it mean to be eons ahead? Well, it means they're ahead of their time and they see things other people don't see, and they're able to communicate those visions to the world and manifest them into reality, making a positive impact for humanity. They're doing things that other people are not doing, which I love. They're often trailblazers, pioneers, conscious leaders, and our guest today is definitely one of those. His name is Dragon. Dragon lived as a shaman in South America for 10 years, practicing plant medicines and studying with indigenous people. His life forever changed when he got the calling to begin working with Amanita Muscaria. He studied and worked with this mushroom extensively, and now he shares his wisdom and knowledge with the world. He makes a living as a professional mushroom forager, and he is one of the most experienced users of this amazing mushroom, Amanita Muscaria, and considered a leading expert on it. We're so happy to have him here today. He's eons ahead. He's a friend. He's a colleague. Dragon.
Hey, they're happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. This is awesome. So Dragon,
Yeah.
Such a cool story. I'd love to go back to I love a good origin story. So how does one get into shamanism? Tell us a little bit about your journey that brought you to South America to become a shaman.
Well, I was pursuing meaning. So I had a
Meaning
in like life and meaning. I had a very difficult childhood. And when I was 25, I left the United States. I had a good life here, but it wasn't making me happy. So I moved to South America and I restarted from zero. And I lived in a few countries there. I ended up living in Brazil for a while. And one day I was kind of at the end of my wits and I took ayahuasca for the first time. And in the ayahuasca ceremony that day, I had a vision of the future of the earth. And I should mention, I wasn't expecting anything out of the ceremony. I thought it was going to be just like getting drunk.
Right. You didn't know what to expect.
I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And I had a vision of the future, and it was so real and so powerful and so perfect. I mean, it was a level of perfect that I can't even like just put into words.
Right.
And I knew that it was going to occur. And at that point in time, my life had really not been going in a good direction. Let's just say.
Okay.
And when I saw this, I was like, I will do anything to make that real. And from that day forward, I changed into a different person because the only thing that mattered to me was making that vision come true. Because I had already explored every single part of this world and not found anything that I was interested in. So I said, well, the only thing that I want to do or that might be interesting to me would be to see if I can do that. Which may sound crazy, but, we really do make our own reality.
I agree.
And so I said, well, let's take this to the ultimate limit. Let's see how far I can push the borders of reality and make it what I would like to see it to be. And it started with that vision, which didn't come from me. It came from God.
Right.
But this is what must be. And it was essentially the earth was put into complete harmony. All the people were living together. It was beautiful. The earth was taken care of. It was, everything was like synchronized and working together in a way that was very natural and very beautiful and just a wonderful experience and place to be for every creature that was on the earth.
Wow.
That was what I saw.
Wow. Beautiful. What a mission to be bestowed. And yeah, what a powerful vision to get. And it sounds like that changed your trajectory. You got this
Completely.
insight, and now
Completely.
you had to embody this new version of yourself to be able to steward it forward into this new earth.
Right. Right. So that's where I got, you know, after I had this vision, the next ceremony, there was an interaction with entities, and they essentially, I was asked to make a commitment. It's like you can commit to this, or you can just do whatever you're going to do, anyways.
Hmm.
And so I did, and uh, then I got the name Dragon, and they
Cool.
said, "This is your name. Your name is Laughing Dragon." And
Cool.
there's a lot of other things happened that day, but basically that was it. And then from there on, it was just, it was just change after change, and I just worked constantly on myself. It was
Mhm.
all about because like whether these things occur or not, like I'm talking about, it's dependent on your internal perspective.
Mhm.
So you actually have to generate a belief system which makes it possible for you to overcome your current set of circumstances.
Mhm.
And then once you overcome it, you then are exposed to some new level of life circumstance that's totally different than before.
Mhm.
And then you have to adapt to that. And that's kind of how spiritual evolution goes. And so I've just sort of taken this as just my way of life. And so I don't hold on to basically anything anymore. I just all that matters to me is my own spiritual evolution
Mhm.
and how rapidly I can raise my own vibration and be more loving and more
Mm.
at peace and give more good energy to other people.
I love it.
Yeah.
So really practicing as within, as without, by creating
Right.
by cultivating your temple and allowing spirit, God, and this mission to carry forth in you, you start to see it unfold in our physical reality. But it's
Yeah.
really up to you to really hold that frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the core of it, we are actually consciousness. So
Mm.
we are not physical bodies. Well, I mean, we are, but at a deeper level, we are consciousness.
Right.
Which consciousness is essentially a mirror. So whatever comes into it, it sort of bounces and becomes reflected and
Mhm.
continues.
Right.
And so, whatever you pour your attention into, that's what you get more of.
Right.
And so you can actually, I've learned over the years, you can actually just like remove entire sets of experiences. And like I have done this. I've basically, over the years, I have whittled down piece by piece every single aspect of myself that generated fear.
Mhm.
And it's taken an enormous amount of effort. But I'm basically at the point now where it's at like 0.1% from when I started.
Mhm.
And so this being removed from my experience, because it's removed internally, my external experience has to reflect it,
Right.
which means that I am safe in a way that other people don't understand. I
Mhm.
get through difficult situations that are like impossible to survive, just like walk out of it
Right.
because of faith, what I'm
Yeah.
explaining right now.
Yeah, you're really cultivating that safety from within, which I
Yeah.
believe that is the only way to cultivate safety. Talked about that on this podcast before, and then it's being reflected back to you as like this cosmic mirror. Like like they say, in order if you want to see the world smile back at you, you have to smile first. So it sounds like you're really choosing love constantly over fear, and you said that it took a lot of work. An immense amount of
Yeah.
work. You said. What's one way that you could share that you've practiced cultivating this love within that maybe the viewers or the listeners tuning in can also practice?
Mhm.
Is there a simple way to do that?
Yeah, well, the simplest way to see it is the following, is to know that everything that you see inside of yourself, all the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs and the reactions and everything, technically this is your choosing. Like, you do have say in if you're going to do that or not. And so by seeing things as ordered in some way, like literally just seeing it as ordered,
Mm,
over time, if you can see your general reality, the universe, or you want to say life is ordered, or God is making it ordered, these are all equivalent in terms of what I'm explaining right now.
mhm,
If you see that life itself is ordered, it becomes so over time.
mm,
So if a person is at peace, they see things as ordered automatically. It's like, well, I'm at peace, so I mean, the present moment is whatever it is.
mhm.
It's always ordered. You have to understand it this way.
When you say ordered, do you
Right.
mean like chronological or
It's ordered by something. we
I
don't
see.
understand.
Like an intelligence, like
Yes.
it's orchestrated.
Right. You could say God,
Right.
universe, pick whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is ordered by something that you don't understand that is greater than you.
Hmm.
And so you just, okay, well, you know that that's true. So you stay at peace.
Right.
But people who don't know that this is true, they get scared.
Right.
Right. And so they have the opposite philosophy, which is a more tendency towards atheism.
Mm.
And so this is actually it's actually dangerous for the soul of the being.
Mm.
And,
How so?
well, I mean, a person's belief system makes their reality, right?
Right.
And so if a person believes they are powerless, they actually make themselves so.
Right.
And this can accumulate over their life or over lifetimes
Hmm.
until a person is progressively making themselves more and more powerless
Mm.
until eventually they are in a dimension, in a reality where they are completely powerless and can never get out.
Right.
And that is a real phenomenon,
It's a real
fortunately.
phenomenon, and it sounds like it's actually by their choosing,
It is technically they're choosing it.
whether
Yes.
they're aware of it or not.
Right. It's right. It's through fear
Mhm.
because it's this basic mechanism of fear is generating the reality.
Mhm.
It's generating the type of order that reality experiences.
Mhm.
And so literally just because of the fear, it will generate all of the problems. You can examine this very easily that thoughts actually come from feelings,
Mm.
not the other way around.
Really? I
Yeah.
always thought it was your feelings come from your thoughts.
It can, but the
Mhm.
thing is that there is a base level of feeling that people usually don't pay attention to, which is lower, which is below the thoughts. Right?
Mhm.
So you have this base level of attitude or mood, and then you have your thoughts, and then you have these feelings that are sort of within the thoughts, right?
Right.
And so if you have this base level of feeling elevated, the thoughts are also elevated, and they're more ordered as well, and you can solve problems more effectively,
Mhm.
even if you're not, even if you're tired and uncomfortable. If you're in this state of mind, you can still execute things.
Right, because your foundation, those
That's
foundational
right.
feelings are strong,
That's
and
right.
they will set the tone for everything else.
Yeah, that's like how, like, special forces become so concentrated and so effective, is that it doesn't matter the situation, they're still, solid.
They're
This is
solid.
exactly what I'm describing. It's faith.
It's faith, and it's you talk about special forces like military. Is that
Mhm.
what you're referring to? Right. So these guys had to. It's a skill, right? They
That's
had
right.
to practice that, and I believe that. Well, as I'm saying it, I feel it even more. But even our belief systems are more of a skill, like to practice belief in oneself or belief in God or higher power or something bigger than ourselves. It takes practice. It takes repetition. Is this something that you agree with? Is it something that it constantly takes fine tuning?
Yeah, it typically does, because the way that all of this stuff works is, vibrational resonance carries an inertia. So what that means is you generate an emotion. This sets your vibrational resonance, and it sets you on a trajectory within what we call the multiverse,
Mm,
which I think is a little bit disrespectful. I refer to it as the body of God, which
mm,
is that's what it is,
awesome.
because it houses all of the experiences that everything has. And so, within this, whatever you want to call it, you actually move depending on your emotions, as I was saying. And so you generate trajectories, right, that over time.
Hmm.
And so if a person is generating a fear trajectory, it might take a while to correct it. Depends on how long they were doing it, how intensely, right? How capable they are of creating the opposite energy, right?
Hmm.
Is also a factor, because it's not just enough to stop producing fear. You should also produce another positive thing to get you away from it, right?
Right,
Pushing the other direction.
right.
Um,
Like love.
yeah, right. And so there's actually like a navigation that you can actually conduct, which I do, but it's yeah, it's very important that people know that, like, you have to be very attentive to your cycles of your life, like the things that you repeatedly do,
Hmm.
and how can you, like, best manage what manage your greatest needs. Your greatest needs are always first,
Mm,
and as long as those are taken care of, you have to be willing to, like, let go of the other stuff. That's
mm,
the best way I can tell people to manage fear. You
mhm,
let go of the stuff that really doesn't matter. Pay attention to stuff that really does matter.
mhm,
Because if your life is focused on something that is meaningful, your comforts are kind of less relevant.
mm.
It doesn't. Yeah, they matter, but it's like less important, right? Because what matters is the things that you're dedicating yourself to, that your
Mm.
soul wants.
Can you give an example of that, what you just said, where if you're focused on something more meaningful, the
Mhm.
rest doesn't matter?
Yeah. I mean, for my own life, uh, you know, uh, when I left Brazil, so I had lived in South America for 10 years when I left, and I loved it there. And I was living on this beautiful paradise island called Florianopolis. It had like beautiful beaches and good food and beautiful women everywhere. It's just like, I mean, the iconic like paradise island,
Yeah.
And I lived there, and I did ceremonies and training, and it's wonderful. And after many years of this, and it was great. I had started working with Amanita for a while, and it was getting into my life. And one day I did a ceremony with it, and it communicated to me, and it said that you have to go back to the United States to bring Amanita Muscaria to the world.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I'm kind of set up here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a
I'm
good
kind of
idea.
liking
I was
it
like,
here.
I was like, I don't know. But no, I knew that like this was like I had already gone through training and I had gone through school, and I needed to like apply
Right. It's time
what
to
I
go
had
to
learned.
work.
Yeah. And so I came back to the US, and it started off with having no money and I living in a woman with a truck that I had met on the internet. That was the start.
Back here in the US?
Yes.
Wow.
That was 2 years ago.
Wow.
And at this point, I now have my own company, make all my money foraging for mushrooms. So I'm doing great now. But like it was having to test something like that, right?
Mhm.
That that allows you to build your faith,
Right.
right? It's focusing on what really matters. It's like, do I really care about all these comforts I have and the women and the food and the ease of every life and all that? And when I could have this much greater thing of knowing truly like coming closer to God,
Right.
like truly testing my faith, like finding out, can I actually bear my own reality? Can I bear like the truth of what I am making and live it?
Mhm.
And yeah, so I tested it. I think people should do that.
Yeah, it sounds like you swapped out the comforts of hedonism or a hedonistic lifestyle for purpose.
Yeah.
And purpose is, a powerful frequency to have, especially as a man in this world. And I think that really does set the foundational tone for everything else, because you know that you have an actual purpose that's here to serve and serve the bigger picture and the bigger mission, like you referred to earlier.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think everyone can find that for themselves.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. How do you think people can tap into that? How do you think they can find their purpose? Or does it find them?
A person's purpose, I think, is found by pursuing well-being,
Mm.
and a person knowing that what matters in life is that they are at peace,
Mm.
and that from this foundation, you can build something else.
Mm.
You can build a life for yourself somehow. But if a person tries to build their life off of something that's less than peace,
Right.
peace being kind of like the most gentle but pleasant feeling we have, right?
Right.
So if you go below that, you're getting into something that's like a negative feeling, right? And so if you build your life upon anything that's a negative feeling, eventually it's going to collapse,
Right.
and in a way that you don't like,
Mhm.
because it was created from negative energy. So the primary focus of life should be on just generating the right type of energy.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Peace is power.
Yeah.
Peace is powerful, and that's a powerful foundation to set everything on. And it is all energy.
Yeah.
I do believe that as well. Awesome. I love this. All right. You touched on it. I want to dive into it a little bit more. Obviously, it's a big reason of why we're both here.
Mhm.
Amanita muscaria.
Yeah.
Amazing mushroom. It's been around for a long, long time, thousands, if not millions of years, thousands in recorded history. You said you got a calling to work with it. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this mushroom as well, bringing it into the world. We're working closely together on doing that. We're
Mhm.
super excited about this collaboration at Eons, because I believe it. I truly believe that this mushroom can help on so many levels. Millions of people
Yes.
can benefit from this thing, and right now it's legal, which is fantastic, right? So, we don't have to jump through the hoops or do anything that's illegal. When this mushroom is fully legal, it should be brought to the world. So I'm obviously very excited about that. I know you're a leading expert on this Amanita muscaria mushroom. So let's go back a little bit. You got the calling while you're in Brazil to start working with this mushroom.
Mhm.
Tell us a bit more about that journey.
Yeah. Well, it was fascinating because it was definitely my life's destiny to discover this thing and fall in love with it, because I had chronic insomnia for 20 years.
Wow.
20 years, from the age
Wow.
of 13 to 33.
Wow.
And
That must have been brutal.
yes, I mean, amongst other challenges I had in my life, that one was probably that's probably the most painful because it just debilitates you
Right.
when you can't sleep chronically. And so I just was chronically debilitated.
Right.
Really, I was a handicapped person
Wow.
mentally. I mean, putting it lightly, but
Wow.
it was brutal. And when I was 33, I had finished an ayahuasca diet in Brazil with an indigenous shaman, and I went on vacation, went out to the mountains. I was sort of wandering around as a tourist, and I still had this insomnia issue, by the way, while I was doing very heavy ayahuasca trainings. And I went to this forest, and I just found these red mushrooms lying everywhere. I was like, oh my God. So I started collecting them. I had seen pictures of it. I started collecting them and started using it. And in 2 weeks, I never had insomnia ever again.
Wow. In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, this is by far the most amazing discovery I've ever had
Mhm.
in my life.
Mhm.
And my body started healing. I started healing. I could finally like think and feel in ways that I couldn't before.
Mhm.
And also because I had chronic, I should mention this, I had chronic fatigue,
Right.
which I still sometimes struggle with.
Mhm.
But essentially, this chronic fatigue upregulated my metabolism a lot. So it made my body really hot. And taking Amanita will actually cool you down, which is what I had to do in order to sleep. That was
Mhm.
part of the reason I couldn't sleep because my body was overheated. So for my whole life, through my physiology, through how I was raised, everything that happened to me, this thing saved me. I mean, so swear to God, this was what saved my life.
Mhm.
And I dedicated my life to it after that. And the reason that this thing is such a powerful healer is that it can relax very deeply the nervous system,
Mhm.
and it seems to be neuroregenerative. So people have reported alleviation of symptoms from diseases such as autism, OCD,
Mhm.
Parkinson's.
Yeah.
I had PTSD. I don't consider myself to have it anymore.
Mhm.
There are some very extreme examples of where this has helped people for certain issues, and it seems to be able to best help people who have an overactive nervous system,
Right.
who've experienced trauma and need to alleviate the trauma. Amanita does this it works on your subconscious.
Mm.
So literally just consuming it, it will start to heal your subconscious. Now, in psychology and therapy, they have wanted to know forever, how do you even access the subconscious? They don't even know.
Right.
Or they have all these crazy techniques to try to do it. They don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
And Amanita just does it it's just like automatic. You
Yeah.
just take it and it does it. And it takes time, but it does work.
Mhm.
And it's an amazing healer. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the main thing that people, I think, will get from Amanita, from taking it, is literally just seeing that there is a beauty in life itself.
Right.
Just seeing that there's a beauty in being.
Yeah.
That's what it gives you. It just gives you this, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just like soft, and it's like gentle and fuzzy and velvety. It's that kind of feeling. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's like almost my experience with it is almost like it hits the reset button on my mind. I've struggled with anxiety for years. I've shared that publicly, running businesses and
Right.
expectations and shareholders and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes my nervous system gets overworked, like you touched upon. And I've been experiencing and exploring with Amanita now for about a year and a half. And I find it is the best remedy for my anxiety, like nothing I've ever had before. It's kind of like what I wished CBD would do for me. Amanita actually does it. And it works so quickly too, which is
Mhm.
pretty remarkable. Like even I shared with you before this podcast that I took some Amanita before this podcast, and I was starting to feel anxious. As you know, my dog he's struggling right now. He's in the hospital,
Mhm.
and I was really feeling a lot of anxiety around that. So I said a prayer and I took some Amanita, and literally within a few minutes, I felt calm. Like it really goes in there and works its magic
Mhm.
so effectively. It's such a powerful mushroom. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, amazing data that comes out on this. But before we get into that, let's talk a bit more about the history of this mushroom.
Yeah.
It's in Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of things in
Mhm.
pop culture.
Yeah.
Santa Claus.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about the history of this mushroom. I know you know lots about it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people know the story about Christmas and Santa Claus. Basically, every aspect of Christmas comes from ancient practices of uses of Amanita Muscaria. And this is also covered in the book, The Mushroom and the Sacred Cross, which,
Great book.
yeah, which is a wonderful book.
John Allegro.
Yeah, John Allegro explains how a lot of the language in the Bible is code language for ways to consume Amanita and different descriptions of Amanita Muscaria.
Wow.
And this is because in the Bible, a lot of what they were doing, the way they were accessing God and praying, they were using psychedelics.
Right.
And
They had some help.
yeah. I'm sorry, I got off topic there. what was the topic?
Well, yeah, the history of it. You
The
know, like
history
you
of it,
said,
right.
it goes way back
it goes
to
way back to that.
ancient texts.
Right. So it goes way back. And you know, like for example, in the Bible, you know, they say Moses was speaking to a burning bush. Okay. Was he really talking to a bush that was on fire?
Mhm.
Or was he probably smoking something that they called the burning bush?
Mhm.
Like, think about it.
Right.
We call it weed. Do we think it's a weed? No. So, all of these figures, you know, this was how they accessed it. And they knew that people who could go into a really deep state and come out of it with something tangible and rational that other people could use, that this was a more spiritually inclined person. And so I think that this is how our modern religions have started, actually. It came from the use of Amanita in a lot of places.
Wow.
I mean, not just Amanita, but very heavily in Europe and the Mediterranean, it was Amanita.
Wow.
Not the Mediterranean, but I should say the Nordic nations. So, yeah, it had a huge influence on the growth of culture, but that's mostly because Amanita itself is a very intelligent being.
Mm.
So it's an ancient being,
Right.
and so it can actually do things to influence people they don't realize. So like you might want to ask yourself, like when you go into WhatsApp and you look for the mushroom, like why is it in Amanita?
Right.
Yeah. Why is it in like all these video games?
Yeah.
Why is it in all these different places? It just sort of appears.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it has this manner of getting into the subconscious of people and just sort of playing around, just sort of being this playful little fun thing
Right.
that people like to see around, but they don't even know what it is.
They don't even
They don't
know.
know what it is.
Yeah. It's definitely the most recognizable mushroom in like
right.
our culture. Like you said, it's the emoji. I use it every day.
But what I'm trying to say here is that the mushroom itself has influenced our culture.
Right. Yeah.
I think literally the mushroom has intentionally infected our human society.
Yeah. It's
Because
intelligent.
yes, it doesn't want to be nuked. Like this, nobody wants to get nuked.
Right.
So, so they have to try to get people to be more peaceful.
Right. They adapt it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Santa Claus story
Yeah.
with Amanita, because there's a lot there, and I'd love for the
Sure.
audience that doesn't know to know a bit more about it.
Yeah. So, so Santa Claus, the colors that he wears is red and white. There are videos actually of shamans in Siberia who use Amanita to control reindeer, and they can get the reindeer to do basically whatever they want, including pull them on a sled across ice. And there's videos of this.
Right.
All of these different things are in reverence to Amanita, including getting presents.
How so?
So when you go foraging for Amanita out in the woods, you have to look underneath the pine trees.
Like a
right?
Christmas
For the
tree.
Yeah, it's the same as getting your Christmas present on Christmas morning.
Yes.
Right? In the stockings, they would put raw Amanita into the stockings, and that would dehydrate them because you leave it by the fire. There's one way to dehydrate it. Another way is you can hang them from the tree, and wind will blow, and after a few days, they'll be dry. So they just
like ornaments.
Ornaments, right? So like, I mean, the list goes on and on. Another thing, Christmas comes at the end of the foraging season, which is in this hemisphere ends in December,
right?
And so, I mean, that's when you would have Amanita available,
right?
But yeah, really, I think honestly that humans, we have developed these rituals because we sense there's something within people that looks for something that is of a higher order. Does that make sense? Like we pursue it, and just sort of through our feelings, through our sort of mutual subconscious, we've generated this ritual of Christmas, which somehow is about Amanita Muscaria.
Right.
And as I've said, like I really think that Amanita itself has done this. I know that it is conscious, that people have their weird opinions about how, oh, it's just a mushroom. guys, it's a hyper intelligent being. Like,
Right.
so
Yeah, mushrooms are their own
it can
kingdom.
do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they're their own kingdom. They have innate intelligence. They're
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of years old.
That's right.
They're older than us as human
That's right.
beings, and they've survived ice ages, and they've been able to repopulate all over the world. And
And
it's
they
go ahead.
communicate in between forests.
That's right.
That's what mycelium does.
Yes.
They're these like nervous system basically of the forest, and so it has all of the knowledge. Mycelium doesn't really die.
Mhm.
It doesn't typically expire. So some of these forests have hundreds, like you were saying, hundreds of millions of years old. Is how old the mycelium is.
Yeah, it's a lot of wisdom
It's
there.
hyper intelligent. It's been through so many catastrophes and species dying off and whatever. It's seen just so many things that
Yeah.
it doesn't need like our system to understand it. It has a different system for understanding it,
Right.
and it can take actions upon people, and that's why people say sometimes like, oh, I just felt like I needed to take Amanita. I
Mhm.
hear this all the time. Oh, I
Yeah.
just felt like I needed it.
Yeah.
And yet, where did the feeling come from?
Right.
Right?
I think you're really onto something, that it's working through the subconscious mind. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's super
Oh yeah.
cool.
And it has a way of doing it. I mean, I believe that Amanita is well, not Amanita, but pine trees are actually the organizers of nature.
Mhm.
I think they are because of the most dominant tree in nature. And so they being able to survive in basically an environment and control the environment around them to a high extent,
Mhm.
they basically get to decide the way that things grow. And there's a lot of research on this now about how trees and how they actually form societies.
Really?
Yes, there's books on this,
Wow.
and that they communicate with each other using certain scents and other things, and they do have their own societies.
Is the Douglas fir tree part of is like a pine tree? Are they the
Yeah,
same
it's very
family?
close to a pine tree.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know a lot of mushrooms grow on Douglas
Mhm.
fir
Yeah,
trees.
there's a few trees that will grow. Amanita will grow from like birch. There's a couple of other oak sometimes, but mostly pine trees.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Are you familiar with the book series, The Ringing Cedars?
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's really cool. It's a book series that sold about 30 million copies worldwide. I think about 14 or 15 million in Russia. The book series comes out of Russia, and they talk about these cedar trees, which may also be pine trees. I think there might be a little bit of translation there. And after about 500 years, I think it is 500 years, these trees start ringing, and they start emitting this harmonic frequency,
Wow.
and people that are near them can not only hear it, but they can absorb this frequency from the trees, and they start to download the codes, the wisdom of these trees. And then they start having special abilities and
Wow.
insights, and they become extremely connected to nature. And yeah, this whole book series goes on to explain that. There's this woman named Anastasia that gets all the codes, and she starts sharing it with people, and she has amazing abilities. And because of this book series is doing so well in Russia, and it's become such a phenomenon. Now there's these subcultures popping up all over the world, and they're going out and creating these king's domains, like they were in the books, where a family gets, I think it's 1 or 2 acres of land each. They build a home on it, and they basically spend all their life connecting with the nature on the land, growing food, raising animals and children, and basically living in harmony with nature. There's no consumerism, there's no matrix world, there's no going to work. You really just like spend your life living on the land and tending to your property.
Mhm.
And then they say when you pass away, your consciousness goes onto your land because you spent so much energy cultivating it and looking after it. And then when a new spirit is born, a new human is born, the soul re-enters from the land again. And it's been such an inspiring book series. I've shared it with a bunch of people, and they're loving it. So yeah, something to check
Amazing.
out. Yeah, these ringing cedars. Again, you
Yeah.
mentioned Siberia, so there's something in this out of Siberia. It sounds like
Yeah, well, I think, a lot of people have experienced this phenomena of being in a forest and feeling like there is some, like they're in a friendly presence, or like
right,
there is some sort of interaction with trees or animals. Like people have know this. Like you used to interact with your pets.
right.
So clearly there's some interaction that happens with other animals and forest creatures too. Um, and uh, to just sort of be centered and peaceful in nature, you can slowly start to sort of pick up on these things.
Hmm.
and sort of the feeling of what's around you, and that's really how you can get into these sort of hyper connected states with nature, and really amazing things can happen. Like I've had animals just come and visit me.
Mhm.
You know, I live on the forest year round pretty much. So,
Cool.
you know,
What kind of animals?
like owls,
Whoa, that's
yeah,
cool.
deer, different types of birds, foxes. I've never wanted to, but I've seen bears multiple times. Yeah, a mountain lion.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen pretty much everything. Um,
Wolves?
I haven't seen wolves.
Oh,
I haven't
cool.
seen that yet. Coyotes, plenty of them.
Mhm.
Uh,
Very cool.
yeah.
And I'm guessing like they sense your frequency. They sense that you're at peace and you're a peaceful spirit. So they're curious and they're
Yeah,
obviously not threatened by
it
you.
it only happens when I can really put myself in a very elevated state and maintain
Ah.
it,
Hmm.
and really just hang on to the beauty of the forest
Hmm.
itself. And I have a few videos of this, of me sort of interacting with animals in this way. It's something that I work on a little bit, but it's mostly about how can you let go of every idea that you have that doesn't let you have peace and well-being.
Mm.
And if you can really let go of all of that, and you just can just be there in the forest and enjoy the feeling of it,
Hmm.
that's when these kinds of things happen.
The magic happens.
It's when you don't care about anything. It's
Yeah.
you're really just there,
Yeah.
that you can make it work.
It
Yeah.
sounds to me like detachment.
It is.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's something that has been a big theme for me this year, specifically 2024, is really playing with detachment. I think I shared it with you or maybe on this podcast, but I was working on a deal with a potential partner for like 8 months and I was caring about it so much and I put so much importance onto it that it was like driving me a bit nuts. And then finally I just detached and I said, well, if these partners are meant to be, they're meant to be. And if not, and I let it go. And then literally within a couple days, the deal closed, and
Wow.
yeah, it was awesome. And then that was the one that really showed me that there's something to this detachment,
Mhm.
and I've been practicing it more and more. And obviously sometimes it's really challenging, like with my dog. Like I feel a major attachment to my dog, right? I love this
Mhm.
guy so much. He's my best buddy. But I'm practicing just, letting it go and trusting that God is gonna, you know, come through with the ultimate timeline or whatever he wants it to be, and just practicing that with love. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up this detachment because I think there's a power to it. It's like
Yeah.
part surrender and part faith and part letting go and not getting in our own way.
Yeah. Yeah. I would simplify all of that and say that it's not projecting a negative future image.
Mm,
That's it.
mhm.
So it's what people do is they say, if I don't have this, then bad.
Right.
And this is a rule that people don't know, that like
That they're
people
doing.
we subconsciously make this rule.
Right.
And you're actually setting yourself up to have suffering.
Mm.
And so you have to be able to just like foresee a situation that may be unpleasant and just be okay with that.
Be at peace.
Yes, you're still at peace. For
Hmm.
what you find a way in your mind to have peace.
Hmm.
This is something that people, oh, this is what makes it so difficult for me to talk to people. Let me
Mm.
explain why. Because I understand reality to be that you need to rewire your belief system to keep yourself in a high vibration. Other people think that you have to follow your belief system no matter what.
Mm.
You don't have this, oh, just don't change the beliefs. I don't get it. Where are you supposed to evolve? So my life was never about like, where do I find okay. There was an absolute truth,
Hmm.
which is that consciousness makes existence, and that we should follow that. We should follow unconditional love and peace.
Hmm.
But beyond that, everything else is pretty relative. A
Right.
lot of stuff is relative, and there's not a lot of absolute truths. So to try to have like one box that you're just gonna like run through all of life with, it's not gonna work.
No, it's not going to work.
Not gonna
Yeah.
work. So I think being comfortable with just like rewiring your beliefs, just changing your thoughts,
Hmm.
changing the way you look at things, changing the way you think about things, and just being okay with moving in your own imagination and doing what you want with it.
Hmm.
That's a real important skill.
That's a really important skill. Yeah. Changing the way you look at things will change things, right? It's like a whole
Right.
different,
It absolutely does.
it absolutely does. And it's why is it so hard for people to change their beliefs? Is it because of programming? Is it because it's just
Yeah,
been
it's
so
programming, it's spiritual warfare.
yeah.
So, you know, with all of my crazy life and thousands of trips and taking high doses of Amanita all the time, and you see a lot of stuff that I learned a lot of stuff I really wish I didn't know about.
Mm.
Uh, so
Scary stuff.
can be.
Mhm.
So the Earth, the reason that it is so complicated here and confusing is that the Earth is in the midst of spiritual warfare, which
Mhm.
is essentially there are two very different dimensions
Mm.
that are on the borders of this one,
Mm.
and they have completely opposite energies. So there is what you could refer to as abyss on one side, and on the other side you have light. And this is because the body of God, as I was explaining earlier, the multiverse, it has to be expanding at a constantly accelerating rate.
Mm.
And so on the borders of it, there are regions where it's just entering into darkness, where time is actually really slow compared relatively. And so we experience a lot more time here. Things
Mhm.
are take more time to happen
To
here.
happen.
And so uh, in these regions, there is a lot of chaos and instability, and things are very hard to understand and complicated because it's sort of it's a new universe that's just exploded into existence and is just starting to balance out.
Mhm.
Um, Now, what this causes is for lower dimensional beings, which have a lower vibrational resonance. So that means a lower type of order, like I was explaining earlier. They have more fear, so it's
Mm.
lower order type,
Mhm.
and they want to take the people here and make them like that,
Ah.
to make them of that order.
Mm.
And the reason that they want to do that is because consciousness is the source of existence. So whichever side controls the most consciousness controls what exists,
Right.
literally.
Right.
And so the people are what is competed, the souls are what is competed for.
Right. The attention.
Yes, it's the conscious attention that is the most powerful source as human beings on the earth.
That's why it's so
So
crucial what we give our attention to.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's exactly right. Because I mean, don't you realize like you're being ambushed 24/7?
Yeah.
Don't you see all the stuff sniping at your attention all the time? And
Absolutely.
isn't it an ambush? Can we sound the alarm now?
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
it's obvious.
It's obvious. It's getting
And
obvious.
now they have, they put Satan's name on the billboard in the concert,
Mhm.
and nobody cares or says anything.
Right.
And they have demonic effigies they put in courthouses, and nobody cares.
Right.
This is so
They just accept it.
it's just
Like,
accepted as this
it's
is
like
no
it's
what
apathetic.
and
It's like
how
apathy.
like here's the point. It's like look at the situation on the earth right now. At this point, the family unit has been annihilated from our culture in
Mhm.
most countries.
Mhm. Yeah.
So people won't reproduce. Our behavior as a people is typically self-destructive, and we are very isolated, weak usually, and powerless.
Mhm.
Is it possible that this is all just like, oh, because we all made mistakes? Oh, it's all an accident. Oh, dang it! Those guys in Washington, darn it, guys, this is intentional.
Right.
This is all intentional. And it's these two sides competing for the souls of the beings because whichever vibration a person believes in, if they believe in fear, they go down. If
They
they
go
believe in
down.
love, they go up.
Right.
It's literally whichever one they choose to believe in. That's all that bottom line of it.
Mhm. Choose love.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but it's really like
In practice, it can be hard, but it's just about
Mhm.
loving existence without the content mattering.
Right.
It's you have to ignore the content and just love to exist.
Yeah.
Be
Just
grateful that you are
alive.
Yeah, you're peaceful.
Here,
You exist in some way.
Yeah.
You might be in a dream. You might be dead.
Yeah.
You might be in some other reality, whatever, but you still exist. Okay.
Yeah.
You get to have an experience.
Yeah. Start with that.
Yeah.
I say that a lot, especially to my friends and my team is like, they ask me how I'm doing. I'm like, well, I'm alive and I'm in the game, and as long as I'm in this earth game, I'm okay with that because I have a chance of figuring it out or, I grew up a lot playing video games and it's so funny to me that, Mario Brothers, there was these Amanita mushrooms in there and the flower and the star and all this kind of stuff. Like I really think these guys knew what they were talking about and putting subliminal messages in there as like psychedelics, and it's just so interesting to me. So it's like my subconscious would knew that I would pick that up and want to explore psychedelics.
Mhm.
I've shared with you, I've shared publicly, I've had a wide range of experience in psychedelics, and some of it were some of the most enlightening, amazing experiences of my life, and some were pretty dark and scary when I took it too far without any real reverence. How valuable or how significant do you think psychedelics are to this world where we're going, and around mental health and this whole vision that you see?
I think psychedelics are going to be the critical unlock for our society to evolve
Wow.
and for our species to evolve,
Wow.
not just as a society, definitely for the species.
Wow.
The reason I say that is that as we can all see, human society is at kind of a turning point and things are not going so well. So there has to be a positive trajectory for evolution to continue.
Hmm.
And that is what psychedelics can provide to a lot of people.
Hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Do you have a favorite psychedelic?
Amanita.
Amanita, yeah.
Yeah. I think that Amanita is going to really change the face of psychedelics and spirituality because it's legal already.
Yes.
Plus, you and I just met recently. Your company has a way of formulating a tablet.
Yes.
Whereas I have a way of the best extraction method of Amanita.
Yes.
So I don't have a way of making tablet. You don't have the best extraction method. So we just are putting these two together.
Yeah, we're
gonna
joining forces here.
We're going to see what this turns into.
Yeah.
But, hopefully we get something we can just put on the shelves in CVS.
Yeah.
Because that would be the beginning. And people start to see that, oh, wait, I've tried this thing that's Amanita. It's sort of like a psychedelic.
Mhm.
And then like, well, maybe they'll try something else. Like somebody who's never tried weed. Okay, they'll smoke some cannabis and be like, oh my God, I relaxed for the first time in 50 years. Isn't that nice?
Right.
And then, this is the start of people starting to realize that that they've been lied to,
Mhm.
and that we don't need all the control. We don't need all these stupid rules and laws that are hurting people and not benefiting anybody. And like, it leads to people just sort of waking up,
Right.
in general, and seeing that it's not just a spiritual awakening. It's also us overcoming the brutal and vicious system that we have subjected ourselves to.
Well said. Well said. I believe the time is now, and
Yeah.
people are ready for this legal psychedelic product, legal psychedelic microdose to come out. I see psychedelics as a bridge to wellness, and I believe that wellness is not an end goal. It's really a starting point, and we've gotten so far away from it. Like you said, there's so many distractions out there, and everything's vying for our attention. And these legal psychedelics like Amanita can be the bridge to get us to wellness, so people could start to feel well again, so they can at least make it easier for themselves to choose love because they're not being bombarded with all this fear and low frequency stuff, So
Yeah.
really excited to bring Amanita to the world with you, Dragon. I know you've been working on this for years.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be your business associate and friend,
you.
and I look forward to diving deeper into that.
Yeah.
Do you think the world is ready?
I think it needs this.
Nice.
I think it needs this. I think that this is God's plan.
Nice.
My life, there was nothing about it that I would have chosen. It was just suffering the
Wow.
whole time until the last few years when I found God.
Wow.
After I found God.
Right.
And there is no way that I could have done all of this and gotten to this level of knowledge and gotten this far in life if this wasn't completely just planned by God.
Right.
If that makes sense. This is
It
destiny.
makes sense,
Yeah.
of
For me,
course.
I understand that it is destiny. Right?
Yeah, he's driving the ship.
Yeah.
You're just
That's right.
yeah.
You just have to hang. You just have to go along. You have to go with it.
You got to go for the ride.
Yeah. You
Instead
go for
of
the ride.
thinking that you're in control of the ship, and then
Right.
yeah,
Because you can choose to go with the destiny God has set for you,
Mhm.
or you can set your own.
right,
And you can set your own, but ain't nobody gonna help you.
right.
You got to figure it all out for yourself.
Yeah.
And God's a lot older and knows a lot more, so it's probably better to just
I
take
love
the
it.
easy ride.
I love it. Okay. Well, you've already dropped a lot of codes on us today, which I love. I have another podcast with my business partner Ryan that you met. He's
Uh-huh.
a genius, and it's called the Codes Podcast. And what it is about, for me, a code is like an insight that comes in, and then it gives you a new mind. And with a new mind, you have a new perspective.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden, you're on a new trajectory. and you're on a new life. So if you could share one more code with the audience today, you've already dropped so many, but if
Mhm.
you could only share one more that could make an impact, what code would that be?
That you do not have to be a reflection of your environment.
Mm,
You can be something that you self create. You can create yourself to be a being that does only reflects the things that you want
mm.
to the exterior.
Powerful. Powerful. Once again, with as within, so without.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you create your own story.
Yeah, you create your own everything is really
Mm,
the way it is. We do.
I love
It's
that.
yeah,
I love that. I think there's a lot of people that would disagree with that, but I'm not one of
yeah,
them. I
yeah,
truly believe I post this a lot on social media, and it triggers a lot of people, but that leads me to believe that I'm actually onto something. Is that we choose our own reality, we choose our own adventure here, whether we're aware of it or not. Like every
yeah.
little detail, every little choice is
Right.
accumulating, and we get to write our own story.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly the how you go about traveling the multiverse.
Right.
That's interdimensional navigation. It's you setting your own story is what that is.
Hmm.
So me having that vision and anchoring that into my future so solidly that there's not another possibility ever of anything else happening.
Mm,
That's what I'm talking about. It's like you can anchor things into your reality that you push it so strongly that it will overcome, like, not even if you die, you keep it.
wow.
You see what I'm saying? Like, because the vibrational energy is so enormous that if you can just hold on to it
Mm,
and be good, really, really good at keeping yourself at peace,
mm,
you keep the peace even if you die. How could you so, like, when I realized this, I was like, "Okay, so what can I do with my life?" You can make money and fun and what well, this is gonna last. Okay. Why else would you spend time on anything else? So I
right.
didn't when I learned this, I didn't see a reason to do anything else, and I
Hmm.
just poured myself into this, and, that energy is how you can move to a better reality.
Yeah, it's palpable. I feel it when
Yeah.
you're talking about it. It's very empowering,
Yeah.
and you hold that frequency so well. And I think it's so valuable and significant for this world. So thank you
Yeah.
for being such a
Yeah.
steward of your
Well,
mission.
I did wanna say to people, like, if they're unclear about stuff, keep in mind that it's, like, what you persistently think and believe. Like you got to get your consistent beliefs good.
Hmm.
And once those are good, things start to make more sense.
Hmm.
But I can understand why people say that we don't create our own reality sometimes because I was in that place for a long time.
Right.
But it's just something that happens on a much more gradual scale.
Hmm.
And it starts from the foundation of what do you believe about life, which is what we've talked about all day.
Hmm.
But it's like, do you believe life is good? Is it worth loving, or is it worth being scared
Right.
of? And if that's the core. So if you can get that part down in this lifetime, you're set. Don't
You're
worry about
good.
anything else.
Yeah.
You love life, you're good.
Right. That's what it reminds me. Albert Einstein said that. He's like, the most important thing, like he had a lot of codes,
Hmm.
but he said the most important thing for people to realize is that this is a friendly universe. And if you believe it's a friendly universe, it
It is.
is. And then, that's a lot better than believing it's an unfriendly
That's exactly
universe.
right.
Yeah. So he was definitely onto something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that reflection. We talked a bit about video games and ceremonies and when I was in a ayahuasca ceremony, I shared this with you. I was able to tap into certain abilities that I never had before. I got to like travel different timelines and see different things, astral project, and open up different dimensions. Um, it leads me to believe that if I could do it, almost anybody could do it. And
Hmm.
that sounds maybe like a bold statement, but it showed me the realm of possibilities. And where I'm going with this is, have you unlocked any abilities in yourself? Any super type of power things that are pretty remarkable as well.
Yeah. Uh, so I'll explain something. I don't want to talk. I can't go into a huge amount of depth on this,
Sure.
but yeah, there was one ability that was the first one I was trying to master, which was essentially this ability of using faith to overcome difficult circumstances.
Hmm.
And initially, for many years, uh, I worked at this just in ceremony settings. So it was like a simulated environment. Although I will say that a lot of those experiences I had in ceremonies, those trips, some of those were impossible to differentiate if it was real or what it was.
Right.
Because these were like vivid, real experiences that happened for hundreds of years in other realities, is
Right.
what I experienced.
Right.
So a lot of practice.
Mhm.
But when I made that move back to the US in this crazy gamble to become a professional mushroom forager,
Mhm.
I had to use that skill all the time. And it's a sort of how do you recenter your mind? That's what it is about. How do you come back to center in your
Mhm.
mind and just do that in the most efficient way all the time?
Mhm.
And this allowed me to navigate through extremely, I mean, we had no money. There was a period, there was a 4-month period I had a felony warrant that I had to dodge police
Mhm.
for psilocybin possession, which is now dealt with.
Mhm.
Um, there was, I mean, how many times I've gone to the forest and you have to not get lost, you can't get hurt. If I got hurt in the forest, yeah, I'm dead. I'm so far out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Right.
Living in a truck, how many things can break in a truck or get in a crash or get broken into? Never happened.
Mhm.
When I went to Brazil last year
Mhm.
for 6 weeks and came back, my car had been parked on the streets of Portland for 6 weeks. I came back, was not broken into.
Wow.
That is God. Like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's this ability at work.
Right.
It's how do you channel faith into reality
Mhm.
so that it's functional.
Mm.
And I've mastered that skill.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I only use it for the absolute most important thing
Mm.
because it takes a lot of like energy and focus.
Mhm.
And so I don't have like the range to go use it on like fun. There's just no time for that.
Right.
Like, if I do that, I'll deviate from my purpose, and then
Right.
then there's problems. So so I have to use it correctly, but it's very functional.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So is it really like holding the frequency of like this is going to happen and this is the way, and then just fully trusting?
It's knowing how that process works.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's more to it than it's more complex than that.
Right.
But it's essentially holding vibration and not having attachments to things. Like if you lose in this scenario,
You
okay,
accept it.
right. And
Right.
so the reason that I'm able to get through so many crazy situations is because this all started. I was ready to give up my life when I took ayahuasca for the first time.
Right.
And so when I did, I was like, I have already given my life to God.
Right.
If things don't work out, it's God doing it. I don't care anymore.
Right.
Like,
So that's a
I'm
big
like,
detachment.
that's not, yeah, it's like, well, I already tried everything and I wasn't going to keep going. So,
Yeah.
I mean, do what you want. Like, let's just go on this roller coaster.
I get it. Yeah. For me too, the same thing in the sense that the biggest, most, profound journeys that I had on psychedelics, I also went in there with like, okay, I may die here and
Yeah.
I'm trusting in you, God.
Oh yeah.
And those were the journeys that you really,
Oh, yeah.
you really
Oh,
go because you're giving it all up to God at that point.
And that's what people got to get over these bad trip things. They're always like, "Oh, I took this and this and I had a bad trip. I'll never do it again."
Yeah.
Like there's so many things people don't know about psychedelics
Mhm.
that would get them to what they needed.
Mhm.
I mean, like what you said is it's just kind of overcoming the fear of death,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But if they can't overcome the fear of death, what happens? Bad, horrible trip. Demons show up.
Mhm.
Oh, and then it's some other nightmare the next day, and they
Right.
can say, and it's just because they're not willing to just like let go.
Right.
Can we just accept that it's okay to die?
Mhm.
It is going to happen to
gonna
us.
happen,
Can we just
yeah.
like let go of it now?
Totally.
It's causing us so many problems. Now we got to go vaccine the whole world instead of fix homelessness or education or the culture or the economy or the warfare. We
Mhm.
fix the vaccine problem.
Mhm.
So it's just absurd, the insanity that fear has taken us to.
Yeah. Once again, yeah, the fear and brings us to these, lower densities and lower dimensions of living. And then the more people that are living in it, it just becomes more of our existence.
Yeah.
And it's up to people like us to really hold the frequency of love and hold the frequency of faith that things are going to turn out and that this is a friendly universe. And then it unfolds.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit. That was great. I think the audience is gonna love that. Shifting gears a little bit.
Thank you, audience.
If you could have dinner with one historical figure,
Mm.
dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Huh. Hmm. Jesus.
Yeah, nice. Good
Yeah.
choice. Good choice.
Yeah. You gotta find out what's, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's the best one.
It's a great choice. It's definitely in my. I might change up this. I asked this question a lot on the podcast, so Jesus is always in my top three for sure.
Right.
Is there something specific you'd ask him?
Uh, no. I would just see where the conversation went.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Just go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Nice. Very do appreciate that. Yeah. Awesome. Dragon, you're working on some really cool stuff right now and some really powerful missions. I know you're going back to Brazil to do some forging.
Yeah, I'm going to Brazil next month. Going to be foraging down there. That's when it's season. So very happy about it.
Awesome.
Always happy to be out in the forest picking mushrooms.
Awesome. Do you have any stories that you want to share about your forging stuff that could be entertaining?
Oh man, there's so many. Yeah, there was let me think of, I'm just remembering all the different moments. Like, um, there was the thing about foraging is that you got to be really dedicated to make it work, and to make
Mhm.
it work as your only job is like really a stretch.
Mhm.
Very few people can do it professionally. You got to
Mhm.
really have a tight budget, and like, I live in a truck.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's making my business work, and I'm living well, but it's
Mhm.
like I got to do that because I have to travel all the time and everything.
Disciplined.
Right. And so the level of sacrifice you got to take is that you're taking this huge life sacrifice,
Mhm.
and what could stop it is like there's no mushrooms growing,
Mhm.
or deer came through and ate all the mushrooms, or something else happened. And I think probably the best story I can tell you. There was one time I was foraging in Brazil last year. Um, I was driving around in this car. It was a rental car, but it was a dirt road with lots of rocks on it. So I kept getting flat tires because it's not really designed for this kind of road. And there was one time I was on this off road in the middle of nowhere in some rural part of Brazil, and I got two flat tires at the same time. And
Oh,
I'm like
shit.
half an hour from any sort of road with my car. I'm like, oh.
Shit.
So I throw the spare tire on, and I leave one just like flat, and I just like drive on the flat tire to the nearest road where someone might find me.
Right.
And then I hitchhike. And these two guys pick me up, and they stop, and they have this really thick farmer's accent is in their Portuguese. And I'm fluent in Portuguese, but it's just like hilarious, like how strong.
Mhm.
I wish I could repeat it, but it's like, people won't get it. And they have a cow in the back of their truck. And so these dudes are like, I was like, oh, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, yeah, where you guys going? I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I got a flat tire, and can you take me to the nearest town? So they're like, yeah, we can drive you there, but we can't take you back. And I'm like, okay. So I'm hitchhiking with these two dudes with a flat tire in my lap, and they've got a cow in the back of the truck.
Wow.
And I'm here in Brazil, and I'm thinking like, okay, life. I'm like, how did I get here? I'm like, how did I end up in this position where this is what I'm dependent upon now as a grown man? And I'm like, am I right about this? Like, is God really here? Am I just, this is a practical joke?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is such a weird like thing to occur.
No kidding.
But yeah, hitchhiking in Brazil with a couple of farmers, got my tire fixed and hitchhiked back and got out of there.
It all worked out.
Yeah, every time I get out of it somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God is with you, my friend. He's watching over you, and Amanita as well. I believe they're looking after you so they could work through you. Dragon, you've shared so many wisdoms here today. I know the audience is going to love it. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I just want to share with people that the way in which you should look for truth is that you should feel it. Truth is something that you feel as a knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that you can feel in your heart that you definitely know are true. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And people should listen to this. This is how you find what else is true. Not from listening to me. It's not from, reading some book. It's like what really matters in life and what connects you with God, you find it within you.
Mm. Well said. I agree. And the more that we could tap into that feeling, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Dragon, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or reach out or try your tincture?
Yeah, so you can check out my Instagram. It's Amanita Warriors, my X profile is the Amanita Warrior. I'm trying to build that up because I don't want to be on YouTube anymore.
Okay.
YouTube is the same thing, Amanita Warriors, and my website is amanitawarriors.com.
Amanita Warriors. We'll put it all.
Get yourself a nice tincture and microdose.
Yeah, it's awesome. It works incredible, and It's amazing for sleep.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful, wonderful tincture, and that's how we met. And yeah, I'm very excited to be working with you, Dragon. So thanks
Yeah.
for coming on here today,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
we look forward to bringing Amanita Muscaria to the world together.
Great. It was wonderful.
Awesome.
Be well.
Thank you.